Hey everybody, it is Professor Parish, and we are on Module 6 of English 123. So I'm recording this on Saturday, so hopefully you all have seen the guidelines for Paper 2, and that you've seen the topic and outline that will be due by Sunday for this class. That's the only assignment we have this week, so it's really, I wanted you to think about poetry and just what you wanted to do for that assignment, and then go from there. So with that being said, let's talk about Module 6. So with Module 6 this week, we have two assignments, the discussion forum and the reading response, and then obviously working on your second paper, which if we go to the Module 6 guide here, I don't have work on your poetry paper, but it's kind of like in the background, right? It's the poetry paper is going to be due next week, at the end of next week. So you do have this week to work on it. But the two stories that you're going to read, or three stories rather, that you're going to read in the American Poetry book, which is the pink book. We've not really touched it yet, but it's the pink book. I got it held up here in the corner. That's the American Poetry book. So there's three poems I'd like for you to read for the reading response. One is going to be Syria by Lawrence Joseph on page 68. The second is going to be When Men Go Off to War by Victoria Kelly on page 75. And the other one's going to be 1945 by Jean Valentine on page 146. And you can kind of guess from the titles that war is going to be a theme of all three poems, right? So with that being said, if I jump over here to our reading response number 3, and I'll click this so we can get it to come up here, and look at that. But yeah, so basically for the reading response, you've got your three poems that you're going to read, and in very much like our other two reading responses, in a 1 to 2 page double-spaced response, I would like to know, these poems all have a specific similarity. What is it? I've kind of given you a hint already, but you can go into more detail about it after reading the three poems. The second question asks, how does each poem uniquely explore its topic? So whatever the answer to number 1 is, and you can explain it in a full sentence or two there, how does each of those poems explore it uniquely? And I do think that they explore it uniquely from several different ways. I'm not going to say what they are in this video because that will answer your question, but I think after reading, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And then I would like you to give examples from the poems themselves, right? And I'll talk about what that means down below here, but I do want you to give examples from the actual poems that back up what you're saying in your response. And then which poem do you think handles its topic the best and why? So which poem handles it the least effectively in your opinion, and how would you change it? So which poem do you think of the three is the best in handling whatever topic it's about? Explain your answer. And then which poem do you think handles it the least effectively? And then explain your answer. And then finally, I would like you to create a separate works cited page and cite the poems in MLA format. So we are going to do a little bit of MLA here because even though it's a creative writing class, like I said in number 2, when you give examples from a specific piece of literature or a specific text, then you do need to cite your sources and cite your research. And I want to kind of explore MLA and do a little bit with it because when you do your final project, you'll have to do some MLA citing. So I want to make sure everybody's on the same page as far as citation goes. So that's the reading response. And before we talk about the discussion forum, I want to go over here and show you all that I don't have it posted yet. But what I'm going to do is up here where it says course information, there's a couple things I'm going to talk about after the discussion forum, but I'm going to post an MLA citation presentation here, and I would like for you to read it. You can obviously skip to you can skip the first part of the presentation because it's going to show just like how do you find good sources, things like that, things you probably already know, but about halfway through the presentation, I'm going to post it in this course information, so it'll show up right around here. It will have some examples of citations. So consider this reading response number 3, consider this assignment to be a practice in MLA. I want to see where everybody's at. I'm not going to take off points for MLA on this assignment, so don't worry. I'm going to take off points if you don't do it. Let me phrase that. If you do try to cite an MLA and you show some effort, like you attempted it, then I'll give you pointers on what to change. And in week 7, we'll talk about the MLA citation presentation in more detail. But I want to, 1, see that you can look at that presentation and try to get, discern some information from it on your own. But 2, I want to see you try MLA, and I want to see where we are as a class and see how, if everybody's doing great with MLA, if everybody cites it perfectly, I'm be like, well, you all know what you're doing. But if everybody is struggling in some aspect with MLA, then I'll be like, okay, week 7, module 7 lecture video, we need to go over MLA in a little bit more detail and do a refresher. So I want to gauge with this reading response where you all are at in MLA citing. So don't feel stressed about it. I'm not going to take off points if you try to cite an MLA. If you just don't do it, I will take off points because it's part of the directions. But if you try and you make an effort, then I'm not going to count off. I'll probably just tell you what you need to correct. And then in next week's module for the lecture video, I'll talk more about how to cite an MLA properly, if that's something I feel we need to. My deal every semester is I don't want to focus on something if the class is good at it. If y'all are great with grammar, I don't want to waste our time. But if we all need help with MLA, then I want to spend some extra time on it. So just consider this reading response like a little dip into me checking up on everybody's MLA. And then next week we'll talk about the citation presentation. But after I'm done recording this video, I am going to put it up here in the course information. And I'll come back to this course information before I end the video. But before I do that, I want to talk about our final assignment for this week, which is the discussion forum. So I really like this video. Like I said, I like using Lindsay Ellis. I like her videos. I think she's smart. She makes some pretty good arguments. She's not everybody's cup of tea humor-wise. I like her humor, but again, I think what she does do in this series is address some really interesting things. So for example, this week's discussion forum, how fitting, is how fictional pandemics reflect on the real thing. And she recorded this last year. So keep in mind, it's like 2020, 2021 context. So it's a little different than it is now. But I think that what she talks about literature that deals with pandemics. It's interesting. So, after watching the video, I have these 3 questions. Question 1. The examples in the video are all centering around pandemics as a plot device, setting, or symbolic choice. I would like you to think back on the poems that you read for this week's reading response. Do all of these poems handle the theme or aspect of war in the same way that the stories treat pandemics? And explain your answer. So that's going to be interesting. I'm very curious to know what you're going to say about that. Question 2. In your opinion, how can we use poetry or the fiction from this video to explore themes such as humanity? And give an example from either our textbook or the video itself. And she talks a little bit about this, so I think that's really interesting. And then finally, choose a poem from our textbook that you feel is symbolic of a certain broad theme. This can be love, humanity, death, anger, etc. And explain your choice, what you feel the poem represents, and why you think that. So this week's discussion forum is a bit more in-depth than we have had in the past. And I did that intentionally because your only other assignment is the reading response. And the reading response is pretty easy this week. So I was like, I want to challenge us with this discussion forum, and I want us to have some really engaging dialogues. This class has done a good job so far with the discussion forums and responses. And I think these questions are so open-ended and they're so loaded that you guys can have a lot of fun with answering them. So I'm very excited to see, hopefully this will generate some really good discussion because I think it has the potential to. There's a lot we can talk about with these, especially with the poems that you choose. So I am very excited for this discussion forum and to see what you all come up with. So that's the discussion forum assignment. All right. So with that being said, let's go back to this course information. So with the course instructor page here, this has always been there. I've got 2 new things that I've put up, and I'll put the MLA citation presentation right there. The first thing is this Paul Simon flyer. This I put up here earlier this week. It's a contest here at SIC. It's actually a statewide contest, but basically it's an essay contest where you write an essay. It has to be brief, less than 500 words. So it's only a page and a half, guys. This is easy. So 500 words. You guys type that for a reading response. So it should be pretty easy. Of how my community college has changed my life. So basically it's a pretty open-ended question, but your essay has to be themed around that. And then you basically take your essay and take it to C203, which is over by the gym. If you go to the gym on campus and you go upstairs by where the fitness center is, there's an office. It's got glass walls all around it. You take your essay there and turn it in by February 25th, 2022. The statewide recipient wins $500 if you win statewide. Any submissions will be sent to the state. But locally, there will be one winner from SIC that will win $50. And I will go ahead and tell you all this now. We don't get a lot of entries. We really don't. I think one year we had 2. So we don't usually get a lot of entries. So I encourage you to do this if you have time. Obviously, if you're busy, don't feel obligated. But if you do this assignment and you do turn this in, I will give you extra credit in this class. I'll give you like 10 points, which our class is only out of 1,000 points. So that's 10 points seems like it's not a lot, but it's in the grand scheme of things, it'll help your grade. So, but yeah, what I'll do is after the 25th, I will contact the administrative office and say, hey, did any students turn this in that's on my roster? And if any of y'all did, then I'll give you extra credit. So I encourage you, if you get time and you want extra credit, to submit an entry. I mean, it's a very broad topic and I think it can be easy to talk about. And y'all are creative writers, so what have you got to lose? You could win $50. That's, take yourself out to a nice dinner, buy some gas, get some groceries, do whatever. $50 you can do quite a bit with. So just let me know if you submit to this contest, and I'll check with the administrative office just to check. If you don't let me know, then I'll check anyway. And then if any of you submit to this contest, then I'll give you extra credit. So that's one thing. And then the other assignment is that I've had several of you guys did awesome on these fiction papers. By the way, paper 1 should be graded and back to you by now. Everybody did really good. If you want to revise, you've got this week and next week to revise, and then your revisions you just email to me. But all of you did amazing. Like, there's some stories in your first submission to this class, I was like, this needs to be in a journal. Like, I think other people should be able to read this because your stories and themes were so good that I was really moved by them. And I think that's a real good testament to you all as creative writers. So I'm going to start this page right here. It says submit to writing to a journal. Right now, I've only found one that I think would fit our class, but as I find more, I'm going to put them on here. But there is a thing called the craft journal. I got the link to it right here, but their submissions are due the 28th. And so if you go to their website, they basically, it's a very general online journal, which is good, but they show you how to submit here. If you want to go to the submit page here, it tells you the guidelines to submit fiction and nonfiction. And if they choose your fiction, you get $100 or $200. So it doesn't hurt to submit it. I mean, the worst thing that can happen, and I've submitted to journals before. I've been accepted to some. I've been rejected from many because they're very specific. But the worst thing they can do is send you an email saying, hey, we read your piece. It doesn't quite fit what we're looking for. So sorry, maybe again next time. It sucks getting rejected, but at the same time, if it's a free journal, I had nothing to lose. So I'm like, well, I submitted it, and if it got picked, it got picked. If it didn't, it didn't. But you never know, right? You never know. So, I mean, it's worth it because you might get $100 and you might be featured in a journal. So I would say that our works from the first paper count as flash fiction because they're up to 1,000 words. It might be short fiction as well. It's probably one of these two, depending on how long your paper was. But it'll give you some details on how to submit. Like there's a button right here. And then obviously you get publication rights for 3 months after publication. You can agree not to publish, blah, blah, blah. And you can read all of that. And you can click here to see, you can read their fiction and see what kind of stories they usually publish. And if that seems like it matches your story, then should be good. But as I find more journals that have submission dates that give us enough time. I don't want to put journals on here that submissions are due next week. I want to give you guys some time to get it submitted. So as I find more, I will be updating this page, and I'll let you all know in the lecture videos when I update it so that you guys can see if I find more journals. But that's that. So yeah, I'm going to publish the MLA citation presentation here today. And then obviously your topics are due by Sunday. And then you all have the reading response and the discussion forum 3 for this week. And then if you decide to do the Paul Simon essay contest, I'll check in around the 25th. Okay? So that's pretty much it for this week. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Email me. I will be at high schools all throughout the week in the mornings, but in the afternoons from 2:30 to 4:30, I should be on campus. So if you need to meet me face to face about any questions, I should be there from 2:30 to 4:30 during the afternoons. So in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon to talk about Module 7 and the MLA citation presentation next week. In the meantime, have a good week, guys, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.